Welcome back to the Talk Healing to Me podcast. I am your host, Karen Dwyer, and today I am excited to welcome back a guest who blew our minds the last time he was here. It was actually one of the highest listened podcasts that we had. It is Dr. Kelly Blodgett. And if you listened to our first conversation, you'll remember how he opened up a whole new world around oral health, mercury, fluoride, the nervous system, and the deep connection between dentistry and the rest of our bodies. Well, Dr. Blodgett is back. And it's with perfect timing because just 2 days ago, he released his brand new book, Feel Whole Again, Your Humanistic Guide to Healthcare. And this isn't just a book. Woo! This isn't just a book. Here's one I made earlier. This isn't just a book about dentistry. It's a call for a new model of healthcare and one where you're not dismissed, you're not left confused, and you actually feel heard and informed and empowered in your own healing journey, whether you believe you're on a healing journey or not. So in this episode, we'll dive into the power dynamics in healthcare, what to do when you feel hopeless or frustrated with your doctor, and the practical steps you can take to become your own best health advocate. And of course, because this is Dr. Blodgett, we'll also get to explore some mind-blowing science of oral health, energy, and whole body healing. So if you've ever walked out of a practitioner's office feeling unseen or unheard, this conversation is for you. Let's dive in. Kelly, last time you were on the
Yes.
podcast, you said that you should start by honoring a person's truth, which,
Mm.
so beautiful. So beautiful. In your new book, you expand to all of that healthcare. What inspired you to write this book? This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Always consult your doctor. Views shared are personal and not a substitute for professional guidance.
And I don't recall if I shared this on the last time we spoke, but when I was 21 years old and when I came to Christ, I heard God call me to become a dentist and reverse the negative stereotype of dentistry. And that was a crazy calling at the time because I was 2 months from getting a psychology degree. You know, I'm like, okay, go to dental school, huh? Okay. And
Did everyone think
yeah,
you had lost it, by the way?
well, it's so funny because, my wife was a Christian and it was important to her in our relationship that I knew that she wanted to be with someone who shared her same spiritual perspectives. And I mean, the whole story of what transpired to lead me to Christ is another day for the testimony. But needless to say, it was so obvious the powers of God, the universe that were like opening doors that should, otherwise would never have been opened. And anyway, going down my path of, going through dental school, buying a practice, starting to design a model of care within my own dental business that was changing how we approached, you know, connection with human beings. It took some time. My path was I started with technology because I couldn't see beyond the system that was built in terms of how we schedule patients and things like that. So I'm like, I think one thing we could do to help people have better experiences and, think of dentistry in a positive light would be, get technologies that would make things, more comfortable, take less time. And, and it's wonderful. We still use all those things today, lasers, single visit crowns, stuff like that, not doing root canals. Not that there's a place for them, but not by the millions, I wouldn't say. And I was already coming into my path with a background in psychology. Um, I just appreciated speaking using words that were true, that had the highest energetic resonance, rather than just dogmatic uh, vernacular. You need this, you should that. Kind of this imbalanced power dynamic thing that happens in healthcare all the time. And the last thing for me was, the biology piece, like actually incorporating the stuff you learn when you're trying to get into a healthcare profession. Your prerequisites are biology, physics, chemistry, and looking at like, well, how much of what I learned in dental school doesn't honor the biology of the body? And not to mention that, our psycho-emotional drives to feel heard, to be understood.
Mhm.
Um, so in truth, it took me almost 20 years to put all the puzzle pieces together and reformat how we approach patient care. Everything about how we help people now compared to almost 25 years ago when I started my practice,
Mm.
it's totally different. I mean, when I talk to other dentists, which I just spent last weekend in Los Angeles with about a dozen dentists from around the world, where we're looking to define the global standard of biodentistry,
Mm.
which is a ton of fun, right? Because you've got all these passionate, inspired people who have thoughts about, like, well, what would this look like to set standards? Um, and I think, God had me there because I look at things, I'm completely divorced from the standard model of care. You know, it was really helpful when my wife came into the practice almost 5 years ago. She's not a dentist. She spent her post college years in business. And she's like, why do we do things this way? And, of course, those of us who've been in the profession a while are like, well, that's how we do it. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
model.
Yeah.
And in truth, COVID happening for our practice was such a blessing because everything got pushed on pause. It gave us time where we weren't in the practice for a little while, and we got to think through, if we come back to this, what do we want it to look like if we could make it with no dogma, no preconceived notion. And what it looked like was slowing way down.
Mm.
So we actually we used to work prior to that seeing patients 4 days a week, 8 hours a day, and it's just go, 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 patient, 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 patient. And what we ended up changing was we stopped seeing patients on Mondays from a clinical perspective. And now we see 7 new patients every Monday. I have 4 team members who facilitate those experiences. They're at least 2 hours long, and it creates the time for us to sit, knee to knee with another human being and hear their story.
Mm.
And not only hear their story, because you go to a lot of healthcare providers and they're like, well, how things been, and it's like a 30-second quip about, well, the kids are good and whatever, but you're not diving into actually getting to know this human being. We're establishing a much deeper relationship and giving credence to what it is that they share. And one of the things I train my team to have the on switch click on is when somebody says, I feel like, and they start telling you what they feel like about their life experience and health experience. I'm like, you write everything down that they say,
Mm.
because and you'll see in the book there's a quote from a Dr. William Osler that says, listen, this is from like the early 1800s, by the way, listen to your patient. He is telling you the diagnosis. And I'm like, when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, so true. Um, Back in my days of, trying to attain a psychology degree, I spent 1 year working on a crisis line,
Oh,
which was
wow.
super intense. And it taught me so much about the value of listening and, reflecting back to the person with whom I'm speaking. I'm hearing you saying this, tell me if I'm really gaining clarity. And I've got, some stories in the book where, humbling stories, mind you, where, over my years of practice where I wasn't listening as well as I could have. And the one story in particular about a gal named Leanne. It's like for 2 years, we're going back and forth. And I'm like, she knows I want to help her. And somehow I'm missing the boat of what it is that she's trying to convey. And I wasn't slowing down enough to ask more questions. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's
Yeah.
this book has been a labor of love and a reflection of many of the experiences I've had, both, as a reflection of my experiences in psychology, crisis lines, working with patients clinically as a dentist, but more than anything, like just listening to human beings. That's really what this book is about.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like dentistry and healthcare is saved when I hear you talking about that because so many people have the opposite experience walking out of any kind of medical or health clinic. Why do you think that is? Because yeah, I won't say anything else about that. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think well, first of all, I do believe that things ebb and flow, whether it's the weather, whether it's, political dynamics. And I think that it might also be that it's human nature for people to want to feel validated in their own beliefs. And therefore, they believe that the way that they perceive things is the right way.
Hmm.
Now, I love mathematics, side note. So when you add to that dynamic a doctoral degree that says, well, I'm an expert, it we come to believe that, like, well, they're the expert, so I guess what they're telling me is true. And, in all fairness, probably many times what they're providing is helpful, but it does not consider in that equation of what the expert thinks, how about what the patient feels? And that's why the title of the book is Feel Whole Again. We're like, first of all, feelings matter. They are energy. And, so part of our new patient experiences, I really want to tap into what are the feelings of this person? Do they believe that they were meant to be well? Do they believe that that is their um, innate quality of living? Or do they believe, I am fill in the blank of disease? I am diabetic. I am schizophrenic. I don't know. I mean,
I always cut my clients off when they say my MS. I'm like, it is not your MS. You've got to detach from that language. It is never
100%.
yours. Yeah.
100%.
Mm.
I could not agree more. But when they use that language, and that's why I think language is so important, it allows you to see through their lens,
Mhm.
which is in the dynamics of human communication. What I enjoy is this even balance, you know, of I believe that what you have to share is of significant importance. And what we have to share is also of significant importance. Um, I mean, sometimes we hear some things here in my practice where, it would be easy to say, well, that sounds crazy, but it only sounds crazy because we've never heard it before. What if what they're sharing actually is the next health breakthrough? Like, we don't know. So, like, the value of listening, it just, it can't be understated that not only hearing them for our sake as practitioners, that recognizing that it has value, but seeing how powerful it is for a person who is being either willingly going to a place to become vulnerable, that let them know there is no judgment here. There is time aplenty given to you. You have maintainable connection to us at all times via, phone, email, and in person. That changes the dynamics of health ownership. And, we're blessed now to see 1 to 2 patients a day. I mean, that's typically my Tuesdays and Wednesdays when I'm in clinical, high gear mode. I'm typically seeing only 1 or 2 people a day,
Mm.
and I'm helping them achieve their goals, not based on any dogmatic, vision from me. It's like, well, you tell me what you want in terms of total health and life experience, and I will share with you through the lens of a biological dentist what things in your mouth are preventing you from experiencing that. And I mean, I've been asked, like, how is it you can write all the stuff you write on Instagram and Facebook and all this stuff and not have, the American Dental Association breathing down your neck? And I'm like, I was actually just sharing it a few weeks ago with a really nice dentist in London. I said, here's my recipe. You know, I start with a story. It's that person's story. Nobody can deny that that is their experience and that that's what they're telling us. I add to that scientific validation of here's what the today's most up-to-date information about health connectedness and immune system modulation and all that. This is what the science tells us. And then thirdly, here's the clinical data. Here are the photographs of what we saw. Here's the DNA evidence of how infected these things are, like root canals. Um, it's really hard to argue with that, when you're looking at a person's story, valid science, and research.
Yeah.
How do you go wrong, right? But it starts with that person's story, and really it starts with why are they seeking change? Because it's absolutely fair to say some people could have 5 root canals in their mouth and die at 95 and have a really fruitful life. That's absolutely possible. They probably, are taking good care of themselves and their immune system's able to manage it. But when we look at the health picture as a much larger whole, where, people are eating chips and sodas and, ultra processed food on the daily, like 3 meals a day. And again, no judgment. The system's been built to make it cheap, and I get that. But the body can only tolerate so much of that. It's built to be well, but not if we continue to toxify it.
Yeah, exactly that. But one of the things you mentioned before in our last interview was you never use the word need when you're talking, and you're right in terms of like the language that you use, but also, and this is a two-parter. When somebody is walking into a clinic or a dentist or yourselves, a lot of times they're there because there's a need or there's a worry or the concern or pain or something that they're dealing with. And you mentioned, which is so brilliant, the patient is the patient. You also mentioned in the book, practitioners don't know everything. And so it
Right.
is so important to listen and recognize that, okay, maybe I can't answer or fulfill or solve everything for you. But how do you instill that confidence in the patient to then have that power to maybe discern if it is the right thing for them or not? Because if you're going into someone who, or a practitioner, let's say they have a big ego or they haven't done that internal work or don't have that leadership or that confidence to say, I don't know. How do you then strike that balance between patient sovereignty
Mm.
versus, that relationship or that confidence to say, is that the right thing?
Mm. That's a good question. Well, and it is kind of a two-parter.
Yeah,
because
sorry.
because no, because and I appreciate it. So it's reflective of the dual nature of relationship. It's a human being seeking help, and another human being whose job it is to try to help.
Mhm.
And I think we should start by acknowledging, you know, we healthcare providers, we heal nothing. We're just conduits for change. Um, I'm of the mindset that, and it's kind of funny actually, when I was writing the book, and you'll read it in there where it says, people don't need teeth. So to say that anybody needs this, and my editors and I went back and forth about it because, they're all human too, right? They're locked into the set, but but you need teeth. I'm here to tell you, I've helped people who've had full upper and lower dentures. They had no teeth in their mouth. Wonderful human beings. They're going on about their life, enjoying life. They have no teeth. And some of them don't even wear the dentures,
Okay.
right? So it's possible. It's like to say you need 2 legs. Well, ask the amputee who's missing a leg, who's figured out how to live life without the leg. Did you need the leg? So I think when we use the word need, I'm so glad you brought this up, Karen, by the way. It's
Yeah.
one of my most important things that we actually use words that are accurate. Because to say need, like you need your teeth cleaned. Well, why? Maybe they're happy having tartar on their teeth. I mean, it's a little tongue in cheek, but everything is a choice,
Hmm.
So partly the reason that it is so important to me that healthcare providers not use that word is that when you say need, now you're coming to that conversational dynamic as though you're the expert. So your energy's, here. I'm expert, I'm authority, you're down here, and I'm telling you what you need. So do what I say. When you're trying to empower people to make better choices for themselves, because ultimately, most people might be at a doctor's office or a naturopath's office or my office for a very, very short period of their life, even if they come routinely. You know, the majority of their health experience is what's happening when they're not here. So if we come at it from a perspective of what are your goals? Well, I'd like to have my teeth for the rest of my life. I mean, I really do enjoy chewing. And frankly, I like my smile, or I might want to make some changes to my smile or whatever. Well, now what we're recommending is based on helping you meet the goals you have for yourself. So it's then self motivating, self driven, not dogmatically, pushed on you from an expert, you know? Because,
Yeah.
and the other dynamic that I think is important to recognize, if I tell somebody, let's say they come in, and this would be a good reflection of today's current, biological dental push, which we see, it's a good thing in general, but you have like literally thousands of dentists calling themselves biological dentists, and it's all dogma. Like, oh, every root canal is bad. Again, dogma. And it's like, well, so imagine somebody comes in and, oh, I understand you're a biological dentist.
Wow.
Yeah, you need all your metal and all your root canals out. Oh, okay, you're the expert. You tell me this. So they go through it. Now they have their mercury removed and a tooth or two start becoming painful. Well, doctor, this is your fault. You told me I needed this. It's like, that's a bad dynamic, in my opinion. So I would much rather, share that, obviously, as a for instance of mercury fillings, you know, swallowing and breathing elemental mercury is not good for your health. I mean, frankly, that's why a lot of people come to biological dentists. They want
Hmm.
that stuff out. Um, well, okay, here's how we could help you remove that safely. Here's how we could help you restore your teeth well, but understand that there are risks.
Yeah.
Just like taking root canals out have risks. Just because you take a root canal out and get bone healthy again doesn't mean that their bone is going to say yes to an implant, even if it's ceramic and the energy is balanced on the meridian. There might be something going on with their health or even their emotional wellness that blocks them from being able to accept that. So to me, it's this important dynamic of appreciating that the person who comes in for help is a human being, the people helping are human beings. Nobody's perfect at anything. It's why my tagline on all my posts is, Blodgett Dental Care, human beings helping human beings. We're not perfect, and you're not perfect, and that's okay. We're going to work with, moving forward with that understanding.
Yeah.
We're here to help however we can.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a really, really beautiful logo. No, not logo. Um, what did you call it? My goodness.
Oh, we
Your
call it our
tagline.
brand promise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Ours is live more, worry less, feel great.
Well, what a concept.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a really important one, to live by because most of the time, like you say, when people come to you, their outcomes are completely different to what it is maybe that needs to happen. If someone thinks, "Oh no, I need a filling." Well, actually, what we might need to do is completely different. You spoken. There's so many chapters in there, and because I only bought the book yesterday, I haven't gotten a chance to read all of it, but I have. I've skimmed over the chapters and the chapter titles, the beginning, the end, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But you wrote chapters about patients feeling hopeless and frustrated and confused. Could you share a story, maybe a story from your practice where someone walked in that way and then what shifted and when they were finally heard?
Yeah. I mean, I could fill an encyclopedia with the number of people who feel that have felt that way. Um, but I'll share with you a story, not from the book, but from 2 days ago.
This episode of Talk Healing to Me is sponsored by Clean Boss, created by Joy Mangano, the legendary inventor behind the Miracle Mop and a pioneer in clean innovation. Clean Boss is a botanical disinfectant that kills 99.9% of viruses, germs, and bacteria. It's safe for food surfaces, soft surfaces, and baby high chairs with no toxic ingredients and no rinse required. It's also a degreaser, odor eliminator, and all-purpose cleaner that works as hard as the chemical-heavy stuff without the health risks. Check it out at getcleanboss.com/Karen for a clean, better, and living safer life.
The story was I met this woman in New York City 3 years ago when I was doing my Toxic Tooth tour. And it's just talk about God's providence. I mean, this is so wild. She already wasn't feeling well back in 2022. She and her daughter, they're from Kentucky. They had gone to New York for a fun weekend. It was like her senior year graduation present. So they went to New York, and they just so happened to be staying in the same hotel where I was hosting my Toxic Tooth tour. And she saw my sign, and she'd been following me on Instagram. And she's like, what?
So cool.
So she comes to the Toxic Tooth tour presentation. We meet, we talk about what's going on for her. And, she had been thinking for the last 3 years, like, I think maybe that would be a good idea. And what she said was, I actually helped she and her husband get back to their rental house on Tuesday, just to make sure, she's still recovering from being asleep, just to make sure everything's safe. And what she said to me when I dropped her off just hit me like a bolt of lightning. She said, as I was listening to your patients' stories, I felt like, like she was hearing her own story. And it was the first time that she felt hope again, that maybe she could be, feel like her whole human self, go for hikes. And it was like, wow, like that just summarized. So I get that that's the converse of what you had asked about feeling hopeless. So the importance to me and my team from an energetic standpoint, when you look at the energetic resonance and health impacts of low energy feelings, such as, and the classics for dentistry are fear, shame, and guilt.
Wow.
And when you look at the words most frequently used, the common scenarios, you're in seeing the hygienist. Have you been flossing? You should be flossing more, or you need to be getting a toothbrush in your mouth more frequently. This like power dynamic push, feelings of shame. If that's where your emotional center is as you're experiencing dental treatment, how on earth can you heal? So we want to facilitate, well, first of all, recognize where is their emotional basis. And how can we start with the energy of language and the power of one human being helping another, which requires time? How can we lean into that to help start to elevate, create an environment where their energy can grow? And of course, I've expanded my reach, so to speak, by using social media in a responsible fashion. If someone says, I feel hopeless, first of all, I want to give that time and space because, and I say this in that chapter about hopelessness, that there's something about the power of releasing energy through verbiage, putting it out on the table, acknowledging that it exists, not holding it within yourself. There's a lot of power in just putting it out there and letting yourself be vulnerable. When it is lovingly received, we can then start reframing. This is how we can help you in our limited capacity. This is how we can help you move forward from here. Sometimes, like I was talking with a gentleman just this Monday, 3 days ago. He's basically felt like crap since he was a kid. And of course, and interestingly, he has no dental issues. I mean, I think he's had one crown on one tooth that he fractured. Never had, fillings, nothing. Generally, from a dental perspective, very helpful. The path through which I could help him is, I suspect these things from your childhood, from a nutritional, microbial standpoint. And here's the person to whom I would refer you, that I personally know and I would trust. Granted, he's in St. Louis, Missouri, and this guy lives in Seattle, but like, planes fly there every day. So, like, easy enough to get a ticket and go and see somebody who's trusted.
Mm,
Um, so, but getting back to the hopelessness bit, I just want to know where a person's emotional center is based.
mhm,
What I will share is, by the time most people come to my practice, because when I bought my practice, it was a great practice. The guy I bought it from, he'd owned it for over 40 years. Totally like local neighborhood practice, lovely. Very very traditional. Um, and he was a wonderful clinician, very high quality. Today, certainly we have some people come, who live up the street, but I'd say 90% of our patients are traveling from, either 3 hours away by car or much longer by plane. It's just, so by the time they get here, they've already seen a podcast that you and I have done. They've already read my posts. They already are feeling hopeful. It's why they're making the investment of time and resources to get here, not just for the dentistry, but for the experience.
hmm.
So my true hope in my life is that, because I probably don't want to bend over people, doing physical dental work, till I'm 80. God willing, I will be able to, but
I mean,
um,
push it out to 90, Kelly, for goodness sake.
yeah, right. And the thing that I recognize is, I can help people so incredibly well here within the four walls of Blodgett Dental Care. But how I can really impact the human race is, as I have with this book, as I have with my posts, help people understand what's possible on the patient side, help practitioners understand a way to actually do this, where not only can you have way more health impact in a positive way for your patients, but you can actually grow a more profitable business. Because, a lot of dentists I talk to think that, well, if I'm going into hippy dippy dentistry, you know, how am I not, isn't my business going to go backwards? And it's like, well, not if you value yourself and your time. You
Mhm.
know, people don't need trips to Disneyland. They don't need cruises of the Caribbean, but they pay for it every day, right? It's like, ask Mercedes Benz, you know, or Tesla. They sell cars that are, like, by most standards, insanely expensive, and they sell out of them every year.
Yeah.
So, if as providers we start valuing our time and stop allowing insurance companies telling us what our time and expertise is worth, well, suddenly anything becomes possible.
Yeah. We don't deal with insurance companies because we would have had to hire probably 10 more people just to deal with the paperwork. And it's unfortunate. It really, really is. But it's the way that we've had to run the business. You said something a moment ago and it's really stuck with me. The listening to people, them coming in and having that experience and spending more time and not having to try and be all things to all people. I was in my local general practitioner's office. Um with the nurse, I get bloods done once a year, go in and just get the whole panel done. And it was interesting on the wall, and she's lovely, by the way, really lovely nurse. We were having a bit of a chit chat, and I see on the wall all these different um, posters and checks that they've to do. The kids shots and what months and what year, all of that stuff. But then I notice chronic illness things to check and a list. And of course, my focus, running MS to success, I'm like zooming all the way in, going, huh, weight, height, waist size, a few other things, all physical. Nothing in there about listening for what's going on underneath those measurements. Nothing to do with stress, nothing to do with psychological. Um,
Yeah.
Level nothing, and that is one of my, and maybe we'll have a conversation offline about this as well, but I'm gathering some people at the moment to change the baseline of what happens to each person when they see a practitioner. Because I feel that I'm saying we as I know you're a hell of a lot more qualified than I am. It's not a comparison, but when you're in the business of helping people with their
Right.
health, oh my goodness, we are failing.
Yeah.
We are
Well,
failing people.
one of my chapters talks about, because just looking at the system,
Yeah.
if we look at the system of what is required to become a licensed healthcare provider of whatever, you're going to nursing school, you're going to dental school, whatever it is. Um, if you look at the requirements, it's all based in objective sciences. I mean, 99% of the coursework people have taken is all based on knowing things.
Mhm.
It's not based on understanding people, which is a touch ironic, I think, when we're in the business of human healthcare. Like, all of our knowledge is for naught if we don't have humans to serve. And those humans each come with their own past life experiences, past healthcare experiences, their own feelings, their own, you know, prejudgments. It's, and it's, I I also write in the book about when we write a note, there's this SOAP format, SOAP, subjective and objective. That's part of the note quality that we're supposed to be writing.
Mhm.
And what I find, and I'm sure most people who've gone to healthcare providers find this as well, even though the equation of, looking at someone's health, subjective plus objective, should equal their assessment and their recommended procedures, the S, even though we might have heard it, isn't considered. It's just 100% objective, as you just said: height, weight, waist size, body fat composition, blah, blah, blah. And things, I understand when providers are willing to continue participating in a system that says you have to see a new person every 15 minutes. You have no time to do anything except for, quick assessment, objective data. Let me look at my rubric here, and boom, like, take these pills. Well, in my opinion, that's symptomatic management. That's not healthcare. We call it healthcare, but it's not healthcare. Um, it might even be more appropriately described as symptomatic continuance. You know, it's the propagation of symptoms, because now when you start taking these pills, they have side effects which create new experiences that are negative. And it's just this, you know, not to say, again, like, just like surgery has its place, pharmaceuticals absolutely have their place for this. I mean, heck, we had 3 sedation cases this week where the people are so helped by being asleep through their surgeries. I mean, heck, I want to be asleep too. That doesn't mean you take those drugs every day, you know? So,
Yeah, there's definitely a place. Listen, of course it is. There are places for antibiotics for acute
absolutely.
of course there are. What would you
Acute.
say that again?
Ac
Acute.
Acute is the
Yeah.
wo and thank you, and nobody is, well, not nobody. I actually took a tooth out for a woman yesterday, poor lady, literally split her tooth in 2, right? It happens. But that's an acute issue, right? I mean, there's infection, maybe antibiotics could be helpful. But for chronic disease states,
Mhm.
and the majority of people that I see are immunologically sensitive to or allergic to the metals in their mouth. They're chronically exposed to mercury. They're chronically absorbing fluoride through their toothpaste, mouth rinse, water, you name it. Their immune system's chronically upregulated by having either infected gums, infected teeth through root canals or otherwise.
Mhm.
Um, they might even have, interesting story here. I'll be seeing a woman here in about 3 weeks where we do energy testing for people on each tooth meridian. And her 4 front teeth have, every time we test, they test low. And it's like, this is weird. They're not root canal. The teeth are alive. Like, that's very intriguing. So we did some research. She has veneers on her forefront teeth. There's a ceramic porcelain material that came out about 20-ish years ago. It's beautiful. It's super strong. But when we do biocompatibility testing for people, it always comes back as the one thing on their list of materials that's like their body is not, it's totally sensitive to this material. It doesn't tolerate it. Turns out those 4 veneers are made of that material.
Oh,
For anybody who's ever had an Emax crown, which it's beautiful, it's super strong. I get why dentists like using it, but if we come to the understanding that so far in all of our testing, we've never seen anybody be compatible with it, then you start thinking differently about, would I continue using it? So our intention is, we'll take a laser and pop off our old veneers and, clean up the teeth and make new ones with a ceramic to which she's compatible.
mhm. It's interesting. I had a client before who glued part of her tooth back on with Gorilla Glue.
That's resourceful. Hopefully she had a Dremel to polish it.
No, she polished it with a nail file.
Yeah, of course. Well, you know, I mean, I hate to say it, but sometimes if it works, it works.
Listen, it worked
Um,
for her and the tooth was still fine, but we sent her
yeah.
off to a dentist anyway. But do you know what I love hearing? I love hearing because we deal with mindset, movement, nutrition, self-care, sleep, and then possibly dentistry. We will go through because each person, even if they present with the same symptoms, they may have different goals, but they have completely different background and completely
Mhm.
different stress levels or maybe trauma or maybe different nutritional or certainly different microbiomes. And so it's so important to meet people where they're at and really hear them. But I love hearing you talk about your practice and how you deal with people. I would love to hear the future of healthcare, if it was 10 years' time and it was the way that you wanted it to look, how would it look different from now? What would you like to see happen?
Well, not to be self-absorbed, but it would look like our practice where every new patient experience, people are given 2 hours.
Mhm.
And prior to a practice converting, if you will, to that type of an approach, they go through a long learning process. They're reading books about human connection. They're reading books about language and communication. They're reading books about energetic resonance. A great book people can pick up and read is called Power versus Force by Dr. I believe it's David Hawkins. Um, it was actually the first book that was sent to me when I did my integrative biological dental medicine training. Start was like going back 8 years ago now.
Mhm.
Um, Looking at universal energy through the lens of energetic resonance, language, feelings. It was so eye-opening. It helped me objectify what I felt in my gut, which also has value, of course, when I would be on a crisis line. When I would hear certain words that I could feel in my gut from that person, I was like, wow, you feel hopeless? I can feel the pit in my stomach. Just hearing it from another person. And it's not to say, well, that's horrible. It's information, you know, given your experiences, it's understandable. So it would ultimately look like the requirements to becoming a healthcare provider would be 50% scientifically based from an objective science perspective and 50% human communication and psychology based, because that reflects the accuracy of what it is we really do, helping people and providing services. Both parts are equally important, in my opinion.
Mhm.
That is not the structure of the current system, which is why we continue to pump out tens of thousands of healthcare providers who lack the knowledge and experience of what it looks and feels like to be of service, not to teeth or to whatever your area of expertise is, but to a human being. Those
Yeah.
are two very different things.
That's beautiful. And you know what? I would say 99% of people that go into their profession want to do that. And then they're
Yep.
herded into the way that it's already done until somebody breaks the mold. I often think the same about politicians as well. They go in with a big heart and wanting to help people or make change. And then it's literally politics or whatever it is that happened. And you get
Mhm.
drowned out by the way that things have always been. So I really
Right.
love the fact that you have written this book and given people the opportunity to have their own leadership and to think about it a little bit different. In fact, there's a chapter called, let me bring it up here because I took some notes, an ode to healthcare providers. And the line that struck me in that is, the world is waking up from a slumber where we have been lulled to sleep by the ever increasing allure of convenience and comfort. I mean, it was a beautiful piece of hope, that you mentioned about, one of your clients saying that before. But I think we all are feeling that. And again, I created MS to Success because of the frustration and loneliness and you know, being so scared in my own health journey that I thought I've got to do something different because I know what helped me, and I would like to impart that and bring in all the people of because I only know what I know, and I'm not arrogant enough to think that, "Oh, do what I do and you'll have the same results." So this
Right.
is why I bring in the biological neurologists, the functional medicine doctors, the naturopathic doctors, the clinical hypnotherapists. We bring in all of those people because everybody's going to listen differently, but everybody's going to have a different opportunity to show up and be heard and be supported in a different way. What is your hope for doctors and dentists and practitioners who are maybe already qualified, who maybe hear this or read your book? What do you want them to come away with?
Um, my hope would be that they look at from a very like taking an honest accounting of how much time are they spending telling versus how much time they're spending listening. One of the most powerful questions I've found to ask people is, what do you think is at the core of driving this? Whatever your experience is. And again, you write down everything that they say. Because again, going back to Dr. Osler's statement, listen to your patient. They're telling you the diagnosis. I believe that. Um, but we're generally speaking involved in a system that values volume and activity
Hmm.
over actual health outcomes, which ultimately is the responsibility of the human being seeking health. It's their journey, it's their health. We're just here to play a role in, like for me, it might look like helping energy to become opened up again, either emotionally, physically, through a dental perspective. That's my lens. Um, yeah, matter of fact, like when I did my integrative medical dental training, my wife was asking me like, "So, like, are you gonna be doing, like, naturopathic medicine?" And I'm like, "No, I'm still gonna look through the lens of a dentist, but with a much broader appreciation and understanding of how things are connected." And, so my hope is that not only do provide like, doctors, let's say, because, let's acknowledge they're generally perceived as the leaders in a practice. That being said, um, so many practices today, and this is sadly true in dentistry, it's moved to a corporate model where the actual leaders are, CEOs, CFOs, financially driven. How do we make the bottom line fatter? Uh, and it's like, what on earth does that have to do with health? We have to step away from a model that simply helps, in my opinion, it helps nobody. It perpetuates a cycle that is ever more toxic. It's ever more chronically burdensome on a person's true health. So, as sad as it is, like there's no quick way to wellness.
Yeah.
And it's often not linear. It's, oh, I just do this and I'll be fine, right?
Yeah. That's why
It's
we
like,
don't
no.
work with anyone for less than 5 months. The
Yeah,
minimum, at a
which
minimum.
makes perfect sense. Like this is Like I was saying, for this woman from Kentucky, like it took her 3 years to get here. That was 3 years of communication, gathering information, assessing how are you working with your naturopath? All these kind, it takes time, like any good relationship does. I mean, it was from the day I met my wife till the day we got married was 3 years and 3 months. There was
Oh,
there was no shotgun involved.
yeah.
And so, we took our time, we got to know each other. We're coming up on 31 years of marriage in September. It was a
Congratulations.
relationship that was came from true connection as human beings, which is how we maintain great relationships. There's no fast way. You can't come in as a dentist, let's say, for a 60-second exam with a person you've never met in your life and expect them to feel connected to you and to trust you. Like that's just craziness. But
Mm.
again, it's when we live in a state where things are so fast, everything's on an app, you know, not to discourage technology, like it's awesome, so many cool things we can do with it, but in as it relates to human relationships and connection, that takes time. And it also takes me acknowledging as a provider how valuable you are as a patient and what you can bring to us and vice versa. You know, we both come to it, in openness, being vulnerable with each other. Like I can't count how many times I've said to somebody like, huh, I don't know. They've got a question. Like, I truly don't know, but I think I might know who I could ask. Um, like, there's a lot of power in a healthcare provider acknowledging, I don't know. Um, we all have limitations to our understanding,
Mhm.
and our recommendations are generally based on our current understanding. So,
Yeah.
hopefully, in 10 years, I'm not holding my breath, Karen, but um, hopefully we start to see the value of a humanistic approach to listening, to acknowledging that feelings, emotions, thoughts have so much power over a person's health experience and life experience in general. um, I hope that that becomes more significant.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you on that for sure. I think that's a great way to be. Well, we did a quick fire round the last time, so I'm not going to ask you those same questions, but I do have four that I would like to ask you, and they're a little bit more
Lovely.
relevant for here. So you may have answered this one already, but I would like to hear a book that you read while writing this one that maybe shaped your perspective.
Oh gosh. So to qualify, most of the books I've read while I've been writing this relate to what I'm doing with my team. Um, oh, we just read Checklist Manifesto,
Oh, I've never
which
heard
I
of it.
don't know. Oh my gosh, it's one of my all-time favorite books. Again, I'm a business owner. I do clinical procedures 3 days a week. Um, One of the things that has helped our team to be so present interpersonally is that we've removed having to think about the clinical aspects of what we do. When we're doing procedures, let's make a checklist so that we don't forget things. It's always, like, because as humans, we're all prone to error. That is the way life is. So let's checklist those things so that when we're then with a person, we're not worried about having to think about that. So it's by Dr. Atul Gawande, Checklist Manifesto. And I also got to give a shout out to the Four Agreements. Um, we've just re-reviewed that as a team. It's an annual review for us about the Four Agreements. And the beauty of the Four Agreements is that just like the relational dynamic I'm talking about, from the perspective of me, be impeccable with my words, but then as the receiver of words, take nothing personally. Like it acknowledges that it's 50-50.
Yeah.
Love it, love it, love it.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. I love a checklist. Even in the notes on my phone, anytime I put a note in, I put the little circle beside it so I can take it off. And one of the
Me
things we
too.
do in our Friday wind up call, we do this every week with our clients, is that we have a brain download or a free your mind list. That we've a few different names for it, integrity list. but we write down everything and then they check it off every week and then they write down who they could delegate some of those things to or ask for support with. But it's the
Yes.
self-management system so that you can free yourself up to be present. But that has a direct impact on brain fog, on managing hormones and managing your stress levels and things like that as well. So I love that you're doing that within the practice as
Absolutely.
well. Yeah, that's beautiful. If you could redesign the patient waiting room everywhere, what would it look or feel like?
Oh, yeah. It would look like a spa. I mean, that's yeah, like, the environment it's funny, I was having a conversation, via WhatsApp with some of my dental friends from around the world. We were talking about what kind of music do we play in the office, and in my office, it is 100% all the time spa music. I was noticing last night we were here very late last night. We did 2 long IV sedation surgeries yesterday, and, we didn't leave until about, oh, I guess it was 9 p.m., you know? And walking around my office, Zen music, I'm like, "It's all cool," you know? It's not rocking out 80s music, although I love that. We're creating an environment where people feel at peace. From our chairs, my wife actually just went through
Mm.
uh, making the office more green, meaning like literally green, putting in living plants everywhere.
Mhm.
And, just the whole like natural light, spa music, living plants, clean water. It's like, oh, it's peaceful.
Beautiful. Well, you may have answered my next question, which was a song you'd recommend to patients to listen to before they go into any health appointment.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of just like I don't know how else to call it, like spa music,
Yeah.
um,
Or a
or
bit of
cl- or
yeah.
or classical music. Like I love listening to Pachelbel's canon. Just
Okay.
the repetitive structure. When you listen to that song, it's this energy that builds on a harmonic state of, well, it's arpeggiation that it just keeps moving forward and it keeps growing of course it's in a major key, so it sounds so warm and it's why people use it at their weddings, an embodiment of love. Like you hear it all the time.
Mhm.
Um,
It's like
that kind
British
of
Airways
music.
have Claire de Lune, that
Ooh,
feeling of like being joyful and living into possibility, living into something that's hopeful and positive. And yeah, it's amazing
absolutely,
the effect that that can have on the human body and the nervous system. Yeah. Okay. Very
totally.
good. And then the last one is one daily ritual you practice for your own sense of wholeness.
Well, for sure. I mean, I've got a lot of daily rituals. My morning cold brew,
Nice. It is.
um,
It was Dr. Kelly Blodgett's 7 a.m. By the way, when we're recording this podcast, just to
yeah,
note
I
that.
didn't get to bed until 11, so
Oh
it
man.
was a long day. Um,
Thank you for being here.
oh gosh, it's my pleasure. One of my daily rituals is daily prayer. Daily reflection, being grateful for all things. You know, um, in this life of being a licensed healthcare provider, it not everything's rosy. You know, sadly, there are a lot of people who are out for money. They're out to discredit me, and many of my colleagues who are leading the charge of changing the world of healthcare experience the same thing. The system wants to take you down, and
Mhm.
I give thanks for those experiences to help keep me sharp and intentional and true with what I'm sharing. Um, but yeah, I find that it's so I always feel at peace after I've given things up to God, because it's truly like I can only do what I can do, and the vast majority of what we experience in life is out of our control. I can't control other people. I can control my own thoughts and feelings, you know?
Yeah.
I can take ownership of that. So that is a very effective daily ritual that, since I was 21 years old, a daily ritual that has created a lot of peace and balance.
I love that. You've just reminded me of something that I've forgotten about. And actually, I've forgotten about this phrase. Um, I can't remember who said it to me, but when you're in like a really stressed state, one of the things I used to say was let go and let God.
Mhm.
I forgot all about that. Thank you for reminding me of that. It's been years since I've even thought
Yeah,
about that. Yeah,
absolutely.
thanks. Yeah,
It's there's just flat out, there's just peace. There's peace in that,
there is. Yeah,
you
I
know?
have to be honest though. I've definitely lo- lost my connection is probably the wrong word. Um, but I find myself going to church when I'm in a foreign country, but I don't do it
Ooh,
when I'm at home. I will always seek out a church when I'm visiting somewhere and I'll light a candle and I'll say a prayer. But it's like it gets lost in the busyness of every day here. So thank you. I'm gonna get curious about that. Thank you
yeah.
for that inspiration.
Specifically, I would say, I'm not Catholic, but, um, I follow Christ, and I gotta say, when I say the Lord's Prayer, or I sing it to myself if I'm out walking, um, like, I can't do that and not feel peace,
Mm,
It's just like, "Ah," it's true that, like, we're gonna, let go of the crap that doesn't matter, you know, and forgive ourselves even for the things that, like, we're gonna do that aren't God honoring. Like, we're all human, you know?
exactly that.
It's like, yeah, I mean, if we were perfect, we wouldn't have needed a savior, that's for sure. So
Oh, I hear
anyway,
you. Certainly not perfect. Well, thank you so much for that. Every time I speak to you, I feel like another light bulb goes off. And I love that your message is simple, but it's powerful. Healthcare should make you feel whole and not broken. And in your new book, Feel Whole Again, there is a roadmap to getting there. So if you want to learn more, go grab a copy of this book. Follow Blodgett Dental Care on Instagram and check out Toxic Tuesday and Wellness Wednesday stories as they are educating thousands, tens of thousands around the world. And here's your takeaway for today. You are in charge of your health and you deserve to feel informed and supported and empowered in every step of the way. And really thank you for listening to Talk Healing to Me. And if this episode has resonated, please share it with someone you love or subscribe and don't miss the powerful conversations we have coming up. Dr. Kelly Blodgett, thank you so much as always. And hopefully I will see you in Arizona next year, my darling.
yes, thank you, Karen. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate you too. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
Thank you to our sponsors of this episode. You can visit getcleanboss.com/Karen. And also a thank you to our video and podcast producer and editor, Aoife McNamara at Imagine Media. Thank you.